Chosen one, listen carefully. It is not by happenstance that you clicked on this video. It is not an error that these words are reaching your ears right now. Heaven has aligned this precise moment because God Himself is whispering to you. There is a name on your heart, a vision that came to your mind the instant you saw the title. And this is not illusion, not coincidence. This is a divine alert. Do not dismiss it. Do not push it aside, because what you decide in this very hour could shape the course of your calling. I need you to lean in with your spirit fully awake, because the message you are about to hear carries power beyond emotion, carries eternal weight. God is calling you to pay attention, to see past the surface, to recognize this is not only about love or trial or heartbreak. This is about your mission, your alignment, your very destiny. And make no mistake, the enemy trembles at what will happen if you endure. That is why this word has found you. Now, before we continue, I want you to do something significant. If this is stirring in your spirit, press the like button. It may look minor, but it seals your agreement with what heaven is pouring over you. Subscribe if you have not yet, so you never miss the words God places in this sanctuary for His chosen ones. And most importantly, drop the number 77 in the comments. Why? Because 77 represents the one who almost collapsed, the one the shepherd leaves everything to recover. By writing it, you declare, I am not lost, I am found, and I will not release what God has assigned to me. Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to hear will reshape how you see this person and, more importantly, how you see the hand of God working in your life. The Real warning begins now. Number 1, the silent concealment. They looked at you and saw nothing extraordinary. They overlooked you, passed you by, and dismissed you as if your presence carried no weight. But heaven was shielding you, concealing you until the time was right. Just as David was left in the fields while his brothers stood in front of the prophet, you too were hidden by design. Your obscurity was never punishment, it was protection. In the silence of your unseen years, God was shaping you, building strength where the world could not corrupt you. Remember the words from Ecclesiastes. He has set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. While they saw only delay, heaven was weaving eternity into your spirit. Comment hidden if you've ever felt overlooked, and let this moment remind you that your concealment has always been sacred. And yet, chosen one, that concealment carried a mark they could not deny. You may not remember the first time you felt it, but there was a whisper, faint and persistent, in the back of your spirit. It came not as thunder, but as a quiet pull in moments when everything else seemed still. Perhaps it arrived in dreams that felt more real than waking life, images you could not shake, signs stitched into the night sky of your memory. Maybe it was the strange weight you felt in ordinary rooms, a sense that unseen eyes were always upon you. The world around you continued as if nothing was happening, but inside, you knew you were carrying something unspoken. That inner knowledge became both a burden and a compass, a flame hidden under layers of silence. And tonight, chosen one, that same whisper is returning, not to haunt you, but to remind you of who you have always been. There were years when you thought the isolation meant you were broken, when your quiet nature seemed to make you less in the eyes of others. You saw classmates forming circles without you, family members misunderstanding your depth, friends vanishing when your truth grew too heavy for them to carry. Nights came when you lay awake, wondering why you were wired differently, why your heart caught fire at things no one else seemed to notice. You carried tears you never showed, laughter you forced to mask the ache of not belonging. There were days when silence felt like exile, when even your prayers echoed back with no answer. And yet, even then, the silence was not a void, but a womb, shaping you in secret for what the world was not ready to see. It may take years to understand, but the patterns of your life were never accidents. They were constellations, connected by threads too fine for the naked eye. The betrayals, the delays, the doors that closed with no explanation. All were parts of a design you could not yet perceive. Think of Joseph, cast into the pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned before his rise. Every step was an alignment, not a detour. Heaven has always been weaving something greater than the fragments you could see. preparing you in silence so you would not be crushed when the unveiling arrived. The obscurity was not evidence of God's absence, but his precise presence. While they measured worth by noise and visibility, heaven measured you by endurance, humility, and trust. And now, as you listen, your story begins to refract through a new lens, one of sacred architecture. If you look back closely, you'll see the signs were already there, hidden beneath the noise of ordinary life. The strange chill that wrapped around you when no window was open, the dream that repeated with symbols you could not interpret, the sudden knowing of things you were never told. These were not coincidences. They were cracks in the veil, letting light seep into your hidden years. You noticed déjà vu more than most, walking into rooms and feeling as though you had already lived that moment. Sometimes your skin tingled when certain people entered, as if your spirit recognized what your mind had not yet discerned. And even in your deepest loneliness, small signals arose, reminding you that you were not forgotten. Each of these subtle threads was heaven's way of whispering, "You are concealed, not forsaken." You might have doubted your intuition because others dismissed it, telling you it was just imagination or sensitivity. But your spirit was always right, sensing currents that logic could not explain. That tightening in your chest before betrayal, that inner nudge to leave before danger unfolded. These were not random fears but divine alerts. The more you begin to honor these inner promptings, the more you see that your life was guided even when you thought it was lost. Concealment taught you to listen to what could not be heard with ears, but only with the soul. It was never about dramatic revelations, but about the quiet safety of being held in the shadows. This is why your hidden years will one day become your most powerful testimony. And what you once doubted in yourself is now returning as confirmation. Awareness deepens when you realize that nothing you lost was ever meant to anchor you, and nothing delayed was ever truly denied. What you call waiting was actually shaping, and what you thought was rejection was in fact preservation. Beneath the surface of your name is another name, one etched in eternity, unseen by the world but known by the heavens. You are not becoming something new, you are remembering something ancient, something planted within you long before you drew breath. Your silence was the soil covering the seed, waiting for the appointed season to break open. And though the world could not see the roots, they were stretching deep, ensuring that when you rose, you would not be moved. This remembering is not the discovery of someone else. It is the recovery of your truest self. The first step of this recovery is not to run from your sensitivity, but to honor it. What others mocked as weakness has always been your compass, the reason you could see truth before it was spoken. Your hunger for meaning is not a flaw. It is the sign that your spirit cannot be satisfied by what is shallow. The questions that kept you awake at night, the yearning that pulled at your chest, the tears you shed without knowing why, these were holy indicators. Instead of trying to harden yourself to fit a world built on noise, you are now learning to embrace the quiet strength in your design. Concealment has not diminished you, it has concentrated you. And now the flame that was hidden is ready to rise, carrying wisdom forged in silence. Chosen one, your presence here is not coincidence. It is appointment. Out of all the words you could have heard today, this one has reached you because it was marked with your name. The long silence of your journey is breaking, and with it comes the revelation that nothing was wasted. You were hidden, not forgotten. You were shielded, not abandoned. Comment hidden if you know this word is for you, and let the declaration rise like incense in this very moment. And stay close, because the mark placed upon you in concealment is about to be unveiled in the next revelation. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of this circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2, the mark they couldn't erase. From the moment you entered a room, they felt it. Before you spoke a word, your presence told them more than they wanted to admit. The mark you carried could not be erased. It was a sign written into your spirit long before you were born. This is why some avoided you, why others envied you, and why many tried to silence you. The spirit within you unsettled them. Even when you were hidden, your light leaked through the cracks. As Jesus said in Matthew, "You are the light of the world." A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. That is why they watched you so closely. That is why they tried to dim you, to push you into shadows that could never truly hold you. Comment marked if you know your presence has stirred reactions you could never explain. And yet, chosen one, the time of being marked in silence is ending. The unveiling has already begun. When you look back, there were moments you could not explain, shadows that clung to you even in your brightest seasons. A silence would fall when you entered certain rooms, not because you were forgotten, but because something in you unsettled the atmosphere. It was not always open hostility. Sometimes it was subtle glances, sudden changes in tone, or an unspoken heaviness. You carried a presence that made others fidget, avoid eye contact, or speak in half-truths they thought you could not see through. The discomfort you felt was not just social awkwardness. It was the stirring of hidden forces reacting to what was placed inside you. Long before you understood yourself, resistance began to recognize you. That recognition was the first whisper that you were carrying a mark too sacred to erase. You remember the sting of being misunderstood, as if your words were always bent out of shape in the ears of others. At times you were told you were too intense, too emotional, too quiet, or too difficult, and the accusations left you wondering if something was wrong with you. What you didn't see was that these labels were shields others used to cover their unease in your presence. When your spirit carried fire, they tried to call it anger. When your sensitivity was prophetic, they tried to call it weakness. When your hunger for truth was sharp, they tried to call it rebellion. These weren't random misunderstandings. They were fragments of a deeper attempt to muffle the sound of your soul. And yet, through every accusation, the mark within you still glowed. It was never chance that you were born into battles that began before your first breath. You carried the echo of exile, the weight of wilderness, the ache of silent trials that mirrored the ancient patterns of the chosen. Like Joseph thrown into a pit, like Jeremiah scorned for his visions, like David hunted though anointed, you walked paths that were carved for you to feel the edges of resistance. What seemed like sabotage was actually alignment with the stories of those who carried holy fire before you. The mark is not just a gift. It is a story written into your flesh, your memory, and your bloodline. Every barrier was a clue, every rejection a shadow pointing toward your radiant center. Heaven permitted you to feel the sharp edge of resistance so you would never mistake your path for something ordinary. Think of the moments that seemed strangely timed, like patterns too deliberate to ignore. Friendships collapsing at the very moment you felt a surge of faith. Opportunities turning into walls right when you dared to believe more was possible. Circles that drained you, voices that twisted truth, doors that seemed to slam with a finality that left you breathless. These weren't accidents but threads in the tapestry of resistance, woven to make you question your worth. Yet when you step back, you begin to see that these threads never fully entangled you. They only traced the outline of something larger. The betrayals didn't destroy you. They revealed the weight of what you carried. The mark was being tested, but it could not be erased. There is a reason the air sometimes felt heavy, why silence pressed against your chest even in crowded places. It was the weight of unseen resistance, the spiritual interference that follows light wherever it dares to burn. Doors closed because your path wasn't meant to be shaped by ordinary hands. Whispers circled your name because your identity was always louder than your words. You were watched, measured, and misjudged because something in you mirrored eternity. When light shines, shadows do not stand still. They gather, they distort, they lean in. And yet the shadows could never consume the flame. They could only reveal how bright it burned. Inside, the battle was no less intense. At times you shut down, shrinking yourself to make others comfortable, hoping the heaviness would pass. Other times you bent yourself into silence, people-pleasing or avoiding truth so you wouldn't feel the sting of rejection. There were days you rebelled quietly, carrying the storm in your chest but speaking none of it aloud. The weight of standing out tempted you to hide in plain sight, to surrender the parts of yourself that felt costly to keep alive. Fear whispered that it would be easier if you let the mark fade into forgetfulness. But no matter how hard you tried to erase yourself, the mark would not let you vanish. It was written deeper than fear could reach. What you faced was not condemnation. it was confirmation. Every resistance was proof of recognition, every barrier proof of the unseen value you carried. The mark within you was never fragile. It was only hidden beneath the debris of other people's projections. Now it begins to rise, not because you fought perfectly, but because heaven decreed its unveiling. You are not being given power, you are remembering the power that was already sealed inside you. The shame you carried was the soil for your roots, and the resistance was the fire that tempered your spirit. Even now, what tried to bury you is becoming the very stage for your emergence. So hear this truth, chosen one, you were targeted because you are marked. The pushback was not against your weakness, but against your destiny. The attacks were loud because your purpose was louder still. You are rising because heaven never wrote defeat into your story. Comment marked if you know your presence has stirred reactions you could never explain. Let this moment remind you that their resistance was your revelation. Their fear was your confirmation. And yet, chosen one, the unveiling of your true name is only beginning. The next chapter will reveal why concealment was never the end, but the preparation for your rising. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign, right here below with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3, the unveiling of the name. There comes a moment when heaven speaks a name over you that others never knew. A name written not in ink, but in eternity. Revelation 2 verse 17 declares, "To the one who overcomes, I will give a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to the one who receives it." This unveiling brings clarity to your long seasons of isolation and pain. You were not rejected, you were set apart for a moment such as this. It is in this unveiling that dreams make sense, that sudden chills carry meaning, that your very life begins to align with the hidden assignment placed within you. Comment unveiled if this resonates with you, and share a personal reflection. Maybe a dream, a memory, or a moment when you felt your name being whispered from beyond the veil. And chosen one, once the unveiling begins, the rise into your true purpose cannot be stopped. There are moments when the atmosphere shifts, and something inside you suddenly clicks into place as if a hidden gear has turned. What once felt random begins to weave together like a pattern too intricate to deny. The conversations that once stung now reveal hidden lessons you could not have seen before. A dream from years ago comes rushing back, not as confusion, but as a message waiting for this exact hour. You sense that your story was never chaos, but coded design. This is the dawning of perception, the breaking of the first seal over your own life. And once your sight clears, you realize you will never again walk as one blind to your own destiny. Symbols begin to surround you, and you notice that reality itself is speaking a language you were always meant to understand. Numbers repeat until you cannot ignore them. Patterns and words echo in unexpected places, and songs or phrases carry whispers that pierce deeper than surface sound. It is as if the world is laced with divine handwriting, and your spirit has finally remembered how to read. The ancients called this wisdom scrolls, geometry of heaven, and signs written upon creation's foundation. The veil is thin now, and what once was dismissed as coincidence reveals itself as guidance. These codes do not come to confuse but to awaken, for they are the alphabet of your eternal design. And the more you recognize them, the more they multiply around you. Inside, the changes intensify, and your own soul begins to vibrate differently in ways no one else can see. Your intuition sharpens like a blade honed by long hidden battles, guiding you toward people and places aligned with your mission. Old habits begin to fall away, not because of shame, but because they cannot match the frequency of who you are becoming. Environments that once felt comfortable now feel draining, as though your body itself is warning you of hidden poison. Conversations that once drew you in suddenly taste hollow, and your spirit refuses to feast on what starves your soul. You find that silence now feeds you more than noise ever did. And in that silence, your inner compass awakens to a strength you did not know you carried. As this happens, the world outside begins to mirror what is rising within you. Some people withdraw from you without reason, sensing a shift they cannot name. Others are drawn with sudden urgency, as if your presence answers a hunger they did not realize they had. Doors begin to close sharply, yet new ones appear as if constructed overnight by unseen hands. Opportunities arrive in strange timing, perfectly aligned with moments of surrender and trust. Resistance also grows, for light always attracts shadow, and shadow always reveals where the light must shine stronger. You begin to see your life not as scattered events but as architecture, as if heaven itself is arranging each stone in sacred precision. Then something deeper stirs, not a new truth, but a memory. It is the recall of a song you never learned yet somehow always knew. A dream from childhood, a vision from the night, or a phrase whispered once in solitude now returns with burning clarity. You realize you are not discovering for the first time. You are remembering what was sealed within you before you entered this earth. The exile, the wilderness, the isolation were never wasted, but were the classroom where your spirit's memory was guarded. Every ache and every delay now feels like an anvil where your hidden name was forged. This is the moment of sacred memory, where remembrance itself becomes revelation. Now destiny comes into focus, not as a distant goal, but as a living current pulling you forward. You understand that what is ahead of you is not being written. It is being remembered. The question is no longer if you are called, but how much longer you will delay answering. You stop asking for permission from voices that never had the authority to confirm what God already sealed. You stop begging for affirmation from systems that feared your birthright. The voice within you grows louder than the noise outside you. And with every step you take, you reclaim what was always yours. This is the hour of reclamation, where the chains of silence fall away and the mark of suppression becomes the seal of confirmation. Every attempt to erase you becomes the evidence that you were written in ink eternal. You do not beg for space at their tables anymore, because you now see you were designed to build your own. You stop questioning if your voice matters, because heaven has already written its resonance into eternity. The cloak of doubt slips off, and the garment of authority begins to rest on your shoulders. What they mocked becomes your mantle, and what they rejected becomes your crown. Chosen one, the unveiling is not the end of the story, but the beginning of the true journey. Revelation was never about answering every question. It was about awakening your memory and activating your path. The white stone of Revelation 2 verse 17 is not only a promise, but a reminder that your identity is not borrowed from man, but etched in the eternal. The truth did not arrive late. It arrived exactly when you were strong enough to hold it. Comment unveiled if you know this moment is speaking directly to your spirit, and share the dream, the sign, or the memory that has called you by name. For in speaking it, you echo what heaven has already declared. And now, chosen one, prepare yourself, for once the name is unveiled, the next gate begins to open. Number 4, rising into purpose. Now comes the step they feared most, the rising. For too long they thought concealment was defeat, but the truth is that concealment was preparation. Jeremiah 1 verse 5 reminds you, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." This is the hour to step from hiddenness into your eternal assignment, to crown the identity heaven placed on you before time began. They cannot hold you back. Their disbelief cannot stop what God already decreed. Your silence is breaking into voice, your obscurity into light, your isolation into purpose. Comment rising if you feel this word pulling you upward, and share the testimony of how heaven is crowning your life in this very season. But chosen one, before you walk out of this message, you must understand the expansion waiting to be embraced. The first sign does not come as a shout, but as a whisper older than the mountains. It arrives in dreams you thought were meaningless, in songs you once ignored, in sudden chills that carried no explanation. This whisper is not new. It is a remembrance, the echo of a vow spoken long before your earthly birth. When it brushes against your soul, it feels less like discovery and more like recognition, like a scroll being unsealed in the secret chambers of your heart. The ancient voice does not explain. It awakens, stirring what your spirit always knew but your mind had forgotten. You find yourself pausing, breathing differently, sensing the weight of eternity pressing through a single moment. And in that silence, chosen one, you realize you are standing not at a beginning, but at a return. There has always been a name trailing you like a shadow, though no human tongue has spoken it. It is not the name written on paper or whispered by parents, but the one etched in eternity, waiting for this unveiling. You felt its absence when the world tried to name you ordinary, when every label they offered fit too loosely around your being. The hidden name explained why you never fully belonged, why your steps moved against the rhythm of the crowd. Scripture speaks of a white stone with a new name, known only to the one who receives it, and your soul trembles because you know this is the stone you were meant to carry. You are not just reclaiming a sound, you are reclaiming a destiny wrapped in that name. And as the veil lifts, you begin to hear it, not as noise, but as the truth you were always meant to embody. There are marks you carry that cannot be erased, even when hidden beneath silence and pain. Some of them are visible only to those with sight, those who sense the cloak of fire resting on your shoulders. You have walked into rooms and watched eyes shift, not because of what you did, but because of what you carried. The spiritual cloak wrapped around you has always carried weight, even when you tried to shrink it down. The mark is not for boasting, but for recognition. It is the sign that heaven's hand has touched you. Others may not understand, but the awakened can feel it in your presence, a resonance deeper than words. And in their gaze, you see confirmation of what you tried to deny, that you were never unmarked, never unseen, never unchosen. Somewhere beyond time, you signed a scroll you cannot remember holding. You agreed to walk through trials, to face loneliness, to endure delay, not as punishment, but as preparation. Each disappointment was a timing device, positioning you for the exact moment you now stand in. Heaven's contracts do not burn with earthly fire. They remain sealed until the appointed hour. The stars have not forgotten their orbit, nor has your vow been erased by silence or doubt. This remembrance comes like thunder after stillness, awakening you to the mission you once accepted with joy. And as you recall it now, you understand, your life has never been random. It has been rehearsed prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. People never reacted to you because of mere personality. They were responding to the mirror you carried. Your presence exposed shadows without you speaking, triggered awakenings without you trying, stirred love and hatred without reason. Some were drawn because they glimpsed light in you that reminded them of their own buried flame. Others recoiled because your existence disrupted the illusions they clung to. You have been blamed for storms you did not create, yet you now see that storms follow those who carry divine fire. To live as a mirror is to live misunderstood, for what others saw in you was often themselves reflected. And in that revelation, you finally stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and begin declaring, "What is right within me cannot be hidden." Your remembrance widens, and you see that this is not only about your story, but about an archetypal return. Across ages, chosen ones have carried the mantle of seer, guardian, rebel, healer, breaker of chains. You now recognize that you are stepping into a stream that has flowed long before you and will flow long after. This is not a lonely awakening. It is part of a cycle foretold in Scripture, sung in prophecy, whispered by elders. The myths were never myths, they were blueprints of your becoming. The seer's eyes open in you, the warrior's courage rises, the prophet's voice ignites, the exile's endurance strengthens. And as you align with these archetypes, you no longer see yourself as wandering, you see yourself as fulfilling. What you feel stirring now is more than remembrance. It is bloodline, not of flesh only, but of spirit, of light woven into your very DNA. You are the reversal of curses, the restoration of promises, the embodiment of prayers whispered by generations who came before. You weren't forgotten, you were hidden, and now heaven says, rise. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video, and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. This message may not stay online forever. Download your copy and transcript in the vault. Ideal for journaling, inner rituals, and sacred study. The link is in the description below. Please share it with someone who needs to hear this. To all who support as members, thank you. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. The hidden will be revealed. The revealed will rise. And the rising cannot be stopped.